It's September 25th, 1066. A Viking warrior steps onto a narrow wooden bridge over the River Derwent. Behind him, his comrades are scrambling to form a defense. In front of him, the entire Saxon army of King Harold Godwinson is advancing, yet he doesn't move. According to Henry of Huntingdon, this Viking stood on that bridge alone and cut down challenger after challenger. Some accounts record the number at 40 men, before he was finally killed. No record of his name survives. But his body tells a story that should make every person who's ever set foot in a gym deeply uncomfortable. Because that man never touched a barbell, never tracked a macro, never followed a program. He was built entirely by the world he lived in, and that world produced something that modern training, for all its science and technology, has never once replicated. So what did it? What actually built a body like that? That's the question this video answers, piece by piece. Subscribe and stay to the end, because the final piece is the one that makes everything else possible, and it's the one modern fitness has quietly stopped teaching. But before we get to how they built it, we need to understand what they actually looked like, because the popular image is wrong in a way that matters. In 922 AD, an Arab secretary was sent from Baghdad on a diplomatic mission to the Volga Bulgars. On that journey, he encountered a group of Viking traders on the upper Volga. His description has survived for over 1,000 years. And this is what he wrote about the men he saw. I have never seen bodies more perfect than theirs. They were like palm trees. Now add the archaeology. Per Holk's 2007 analysis of 185 Viking Age skeletal specimens, researchers found elevated bone mineral density consistent with a lifetime of sustained mechanical loading. Anna Kjellström's 2012 skeletal study found repetitive stress markers in shoulders, backs, and forearms. They were the exact bone remodeling signatures modern sports medicine uses to identify high-load athletes like Olympic rowers and professional wrestlers. But make no mistake, these men averaged around 5 feet 7 inches to 5 feet 9 inches. What the secretary actually saw were lean frames. Functional, upright, and built for sustained output rather than visual intimidation. And yet, entire coastlines emptied at the sight of their sails. Because the thing that made them feared was not size, it was capability. The kind of functional strength that doesn't announce itself until it's already too late. So the question isn't just, how did they get strong enough to cross an ocean and take a country? It's what kind of strong, and how a lean man with no gym, no program, and nothing modern fitness considers necessary ends up being the thing that empties a coastline. And the answer starts on the water. When the wind dropped, 60 men reached for their oars. The Sea Stallion from Glendalough, the Viking Ship Museum's 30-meter reconstruction of an 11th century longship, completed a roughly 1,000 nautical mile voyage from Denmark to Dublin. The research confirmed what the physical demand of that crossing actually required of a crew. A single rowing stroke activates nearly the entire body simultaneously. The legs drive into the footboards first, the hips extend, the lower back loads and transfers the force. The upper back pulls the oar through, the arms lock and finish. Every stroke, hundreds of thousands of strokes per crossing. In salt spray, in the cold that found its way through everything, in swells that made the deck shift beneath you with every pull. And there was no stopping. Because the sea does not care that a man is tired, but the ship wasn't only building the engine. Every man on that vessel was gripping his oar under load for hours in conditions where losing that grip meant losing the stroke, and losing the stroke at the wrong moment meant losing the ship. The hands closed around wet wood and held for the entire crossing. Then they docked, dragged the ship up the shingle, and started building camp. That is what was building the Viking body. Not a session, but a life in which the physical demand never ended. Yet it doesn't yet explain what made Vikings specifically dangerous in a fight. For that, there is one mechanism that ties everything together, and it starts in the hands. In 1906, the neurologist Charles Sherrington described something he called irradiation. When the hand grips at maximum tension, that tension does not stay in the hand. It radiates up through the forearm and into the triceps. It locks the shoulder and it braces the core. So white-knuckle grip does not just measure hand strength, it activates the entire body simultaneously. And every single Viking activity demanded it at maximum intensity. Ropes under storm tension on the open ocean, nets loaded with hundreds of pounds of catch, axework driving into timber all day, and Glima, the Norse wrestling and grappling system, where the outcome of every contest was decided entirely by who could control the other man's body through grip. Stronger by Science's review of grip training research identifies grip as a limiting factor across every major strength sport. The research on occupational athletes, fishermen, loggers, and laborers who grip under real load with real consequences daily shows a level of functional grip endurance that gym training does not replicate at equivalent volume. A Viking's grip was not trained once a week. It was trained every waking hour across every physical task of his existence, from the time he was old enough to hold a rope. Decades of daily maximal grip under varied, unrelenting load. And because of Sherrington's law, every pull, every haul, and every wrestling hold was simultaneously a full-body neural training event. But a body with a strong grip is worthless if it rots from the inside, and what kept theirs running is the part nobody expects. Their world was cold. They were born into it, slept in it, rode in it, and fought in it, until their bodies hardened to a level that would put most modern people in a hospital. And then comes the detail that stops people mid-sentence. The Vikings were not the filthy savages of the legend. They were the cleanest men in Europe. The Old Norse word for Saturday was laugardagra, which means, almost exactly, wash day. An English chronicler, John of Wallingford, complained that the Danes combed their hair daily, bathed every Saturday, and changed their clothes so often that English women were abandoning their husbands for them. The monks resented the Vikings, in part because the Vikings smelled better. Two things were happening here, and both kept a warrior in the fight. The cold itself was hardening him. A sharp dose of cold floods the body with norepinephrine, the chemical that sharpens the mind in danger, and over time switches on a kind of fat that burns energy just to make heat. Scientists call cold a hormetic stressor, a controlled pressure that does not break the body but forces it to rebuild stronger. One Dutch study found that people who finished their shower cold took almost a third fewer sick days. And cleanliness did the silent work, because in a world without antibiotics, a small infected cut could kill a man as surely as a sword. The warrior who stayed clean was the warrior who never left the line. So the next piece is that they hardened the body and protected it at the same time. But the body was never the whole story, because none of it holds the line when the mind breaks first, and it only becomes visible when you put a man in a shield wall. Men stand shoulder to shoulder, each trusting the man beside him not to run. That formation does not run on muscle, it runs on nerve. One coward, one man who flinches and steps back, and the whole wall cracks, and everyone behind it dies. So the Viking trained the one thing almost no one trains today. He trained his courage. Much of it came from belief. To a Viking, dying well in battle was not an ending, but the way into Valhalla. A man who truly believes that does not freeze at the charge, but instead walks into it. The rest came from a life that never let him grow soft, because hardship arrived with the sunrise every day. Modern neuroscience would agree this is real and trainable. Fear is only the brain's response to a threat, and a brain that meets hardship over and over slowly stops sounding the alarm. The Vikings were doing this from childhood without a single word of psychology. None of it, though. Not the rowing, not the grip, not the neural efficiency, not the wall, would have amounted to anything without the one final element. The thing that made the whole system work. And the thing the modern world has lost so completely it no longer even notices it's gone. The old Norse book of wisdom, the Havamal, said it without flinching. No lamb for the lazy wolf. There was no off-season, no rest day, no 45-minute session followed by 10 hours on a couch. A Viking did not train for his life. His life was the training, and it never clocked out. He woke before sunrise and the work began. It did not stop until he slept, and the next morning it started again. For a lifetime. The rowing built the back and the legs. The grip built the hands and the forearms and, through irradiation, the entire chain above them. The varied demands, different movements every day, none of them fixed path, none of them predictable, built a nervous system that was calibrated for output under any condition. This is the thing modern fitness has not replicated, because at some point, strength got locked inside a box, an hour, 3 times a week, and the moment that hour ended, people clocked out and called it a day. The Viking physique was not the result of a program. It was the shadow cast by how every single day was lived. Now go back to that bridge. 1 man, an axe, 40 men, and the entire Saxon army held on the other side until they found a way to kill him. That man was not a genetic freak. He was the ordinary product of a life that never stopped demanding everything from him. The bones have been in the ground for 1,000 years. The system that built them is still available. The only question is whether your life, or at least your training, is actually building it.